there stands before the entire world one great and inescapable conclusion. Freedom leads to prosperity. Freedom replaces the ancient hatreds among nations with comity and peace. Freedom is the victor. I urge you to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely declaring yourselves above it all, and label both sides equally at fault, to ignore the facts of history and the aggressive impulses of an evil empire, to simply call the arms race a giant misunderstanding, and thereby remove yourself from the struggle between right and wrong and good and evil.
On March 8, 1983, President Ronald Reagan spoke these words to a gathering of the National Association of Evangelicals in Orlando, Florida. But the message resonated around the world. On that day, Natan Sharansky was well into his 5th year in a Siberian gulag, but Ronald Reagan's message of hope was heard loud and clear by him and his fellow prisoners, held for nothing more than longing for freedom. Born in 1948 in what is now Ukraine, Natan Sharansky studied mathematics in the finest universities and worked as an English interpreter for the great Soviet physicist and dissident Andrei Sakharov. The life he planned as an engineer was soon replaced by a life spent fighting for the rights of Soviet Jews. Israel's surprise victory in the Six-Day War of 1967 led to celebrations by Jews around the world. For Soviet Jews like Sharansky, Israel's triumph brought a new sense of dignity and awakening of their religious traditions. While immigration wasn't technically illegal, few Jews were ever given permission to leave the Soviet Union. In 1973, Sharansky applied for an exit visa to Israel, but was refused on security grounds. He soon found himself at the forefront of a fight on behalf of those other Jews who had also been refused. Soviet leaders, frustrated by the West's focus on human rights and concerned about losing their hold over their population, began cracking down on these refusnik leaders. Many were arrested, Sharansky among them.
I was haunted, I was arrested sometimes, persecuted in different forms.
Convicted in 1978 on false charges of treason and spying on behalf of the United States, Sharansky was sentenced to 13 years imprisonment. This miscarriage of justice transformed what would have been a small solidarity movement into an international campaign to free Soviet Jews. During his years in prison, Sharansky became a symbol for human rights in general and for Soviet Jewry in particular. A campaign for his release was waged tirelessly by his wife, Avital, who had immigrated to Israel the day after their wedding, with the hope that her husband would soon follow. Intense diplomatic efforts and public outcries for his release were unsuccessful. While publicly decrying the evils of the Soviet Union, behind the scenes for more than 5 years, President Reagan worked for Sharansky's release. After first meeting Sharansky's wife, Reagan wrote in his diary, "Those inhuman monsters, I promised I would do everything I could to obtain his release, and I will." True to his word, Reagan imposed personal pressure on Soviet leader Leonid Brezhnev through private letters, closing one by writing, "This is between the two of us, and I will not reveal that I made any such request. I'm sure, however, that you understand that such actions on your part would lessen my problems in future negotiations between our two countries." On February 11, 1986, the world awoke to the startling news that Sharansky had been released in a surprise East-West prisoner exchange. He was at long last reunited with his beloved wife and received a hero's welcome in a country he had spent his life trying to reach.
Dear Mr. President, I am under strong stress now, sitting between our Prime Minister and my avatar. And that's why don't be surprised if my speech wouldn't be smooth. But there are some things which I feel myself obliged to tell you. First of all, I know how great was your role in this greatest event of my and my wife's life, in the fact that I could join my people today in Israel. And of course, we both are very deeply grateful to you for this.
In the years that followed, Sharansky led the fight for freedom for Jews and all others oppressed around the globe.
History will judge. If the world had enough will
and resolve to do what you are doing today, to stand up, to be counted, and to make your voices be heard.
In 1989, after decades of American and Western pressure, led throughout the 80s by President Reagan, the world witnessed another historic moment in the East's struggle for freedom.
General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity for the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come here to this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
With the emergence of freedom that accompanied the fall of the Soviet Union, Sharansky stepped into a new role, helping Soviet Jews build a political party and participate in a free society for the first time. He would rise to the highest levels of government, serving as minister in 3 Israeli cabinets. In recognition of his life's work, Sharansky received the Congressional Medal of Honor and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, one of only 4 non-Americans to receive both awards. Today, Natan Sharansky continues to fight for free and open societies. He understands the cost of freedom is high, but he also understands the cause of freedom is great.
There have been men and women who make us gasp with wonder at the greatness thrust upon them when oppression proved too much to tolerate. I think of the sight of Natan Sharansky, still in the dominion of his KGB captors, zigzagging his way across the tarmac after they ordered him to walk a straight line from the plane that had carried him to freedom. It was one of those moments when laughter and tears commingle. Freedom comes in many guises, in the noble words of the Declaration of Independence and in the noble souls of people like Sharansky. And yet freedom cannot exist alone. The freedom of a man whose cause is just and whose faith is his guiding light.